All right, we are live for another Travel Tip Tuesday. And today my guest is Keren, and we are going to talk about traveling in Israel during COVID. And I'm so thankful for Keren to come on because I usually do this live at 7 p.m. and Eastern Standard Time, and in Israel it's like 2 a.m. right now. So I'm very thankful for her to adjust her whole sleeping schedule just to come on and speak with us today. So thank you so much, Keren, and I'm happy to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
Oh man, thanks for having me. I'm really stoked to be here. It's so fun.
Yes, it is. It's so cool to meet so many different people all over the world. And who would have thought I would be speaking with someone in Israel right now? It's really cool. And when I was telling some people about it earlier, they were just like, "Oh, that's so cool!" Because it seems like a whole nother. Well, it is like a whole nother world over there, And
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people just don't. They have no touch points, and Instagram and social media has really been an awesome platform to be able to connect people. I mean, that's where we met on Instagram, and look at us now. Now we're on live. So I'm really excited. So I'm really excited to talk today about, Israel and how things are going with COVID over there, and just how your perspective of the world and what you've seen. But before we get all into the juicy details, tell us a little bit about you and how you started traveling. And I know you have just as much passion for it as I do. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. All right. So I'm Keren. I'm 30 years old. I'll be 31 next month. And I've lived in Israel until I was from the age of 9 to, or from, sorry, from the age, or since I was born until the age of 9. And then after that, I lived in Canada from the age of 9 to 19. When I was 19, I decided that I kind of wanted to switch things up in my life, and I moved to Israel. And since the army service here is mandatory, I had to draft. And so I drafted, and I was a combat soldier in the army here. Yeah, it's pretty intense, pretty crazy times. And so I was there for 3 years. After 3 years, I decided to start working, get life back in order. And then just a friend of mine was saying, just got back from India and from Nepal, and she was saying, you gotta go there. It's so you're gonna love it. And for me, it's just like me solo travel. I'm good like by my house. I'm fine. I've never been afraid of anything, but it's just like I'll be fine by my house. Like there's so much to see in Israel anyway. I don't even need to. But for some reason, she just like had me hooked. She's like the views, and she knew me, and she was saying like she knew how to get to me by saying the views. Like I love views. I love just like sitting by a crazy view and just thinking and just taking all the air in. Love it. One of my favorite things in the world. And so she had me hooked for a bit. And
That's
so I
awesome.
decided to just work for a few months, save up, and just go. And I and it was just spectacular. That's not to say it was perfect all the time, obviously, because I think we all know when we travel, it's not always like rainbows, butterflies, and sunshines, and it's not always that great, but it's just so rewarding and just so filling. And I had experience which just made me catch the travel bug. And ever since, I've just been finding a way throughout, my, because I've in the meanwhile, like between my once I finished my trip, came back, worked some more, started school, and I finished a bachelor's and master's, and then in between, a whole bunch of trips to Europe, to the United States, to Canada once, and yeah, pretty much like all around Europe, Canada, United States. Really fun.
Really cool. So you said a lot of really interesting stuff right there, and you guys will have to bear with us because I think we've got a little bit of a connection thing going on, but great input, and I could hear everything you said anyway, so they'll just have to deal with that. But yeah, no, so I didn't know that in Israel it was
Sorry about that.
required. I didn't know in Israel it was required to draft. that's crazy. I guess it's not crazy, but you know, it's something different than what we have here in the U.S. So that's very interesting that did you go back there knowing that that was what was going to be there for you, or did you kind of come back and think, oh, like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. Like, how did that work?
Yeah. I think my initial thought was I wanted to be able to live in, I mean, I could have just, spent like 6 months in Israel and then not had to draft, but as I knew I wanted to like live here eventually, it's kind of a strange cultural thing. If you don't serve in the army here, you're kind of not accepted. It's kind of, or, you can do volunteer work too, for people who have issues, things like that can't draft to the army. So they do like a year volunteer or a few years volunteer work to help the community, the elderly, just youth at risk, things like that. But I knew that I wanted to be part of the culture in Israel, and so I knew I was going to draft, but it was for good reason, if that makes any sense. Like,
Yeah, no.
just it's part of the culture here, and I also, I came here and just built. I was very patriotic too. I wanted to serve my country and wanted to do what I can for my country, and do the right thing, pretty much.
That's really cool. So was at some point in time, was it only men who were required to draft, or is that a recent change that where it's men and women, or how did that come about?
That's actually everyone, since the beginning, Israel, beginning of the establishment of Israel, everyone was required to draft men and women. As time went by, women were allowed to take on more roles in the army. So, before women could combat, but during my time, women could be in combat, and during my time, women couldn't be in like the tanks unit, and now they can, or partially can right now. It's kind of like so. They're working on it. They started like a trial kind of thing at first, and then now they changed that. Anyway, it's a whole deal right now here.
Yeah,
but,
very cool.
Men are getting more and more roles.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Like it's so different from our system over here. So I just wonder like how I'm sure that we can go on and on about all the differences that there are. But thanks for telling us a little bit about that. And that's cool that you like went in there and felt that difference. So when it comes to you, so you lived in Canada for 10 years. So you were born in Israel, lived there till you were 9, and then you moved to Canada, which I'm assuming was your parents' idea, right? Like, because you were 9, you didn't have a choice in that, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And then you moved back at 19, and then so you had 10 years in Canada. How was that? What was that like a complete shock to you? Like how different that was? Because you were kind of in the major growth stages of your development as a human, like at age 9 to 19, like those are like the core years right there. So how did growing up in Canada affect like just everything? Like how was that?
Yeah. So growing up in Canada, I think the first year were a huge shock. I think I still remember that, just it's very different culturally. People here in Israel are more, I wouldn't say aggressive necessarily, but they're more out there and they say everything to your face, and there's just like, just common, decency, or like being polite or whatever. If somebody's in to talk to you, but so there's like culture shock in terms of even like holding doors. Like I remember in Israel, it wasn't very like, it's common decency to hold a door for me anyway now. But before that, I just like, I'd walk through, or small things like, when, I don't know how it is in the States, but in Canada, you can't just like at school, you can't just, the bell rings and you run to class. So in Canada, you had to like stand in lines before you could go back to class. I don't know what it's like in the States, but that was in Canada. And so it was just like the little things that besides the language difference, obviously, because, I couldn't speak English at the time at all. So it was just like a huge culture shock thing first. But
Yeah.
Canada, I think, has an incredible education system. It is, the people are so nice and they're so kind. And, I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to live in both countries because I kind of got the best of both worlds and I got to know different and meet different people. And so I don't think a lot of people have the opportunity to do that. So I'm very grateful.
That's very true. It is two very different culture styles, I'd say. Canada and Israel, I mean, that's like night and day, I'd say. So that's really cool that you got to experience both of those, and just
Yeah, for sure.
get to feel that culture shock. Because I think that that's really so do you think that the fact that you went to Canada so young as a child, and then came back to Israel, because your first trip that you took was to Nepal, and it was a solo trip, which a lot of people, their first trip traveling is not a solo trip. It is not something like that, which is awesome that you even did that. I mean, very kudos to you. But do you think that because you went to Canada and you had that culture shock there, that's kind of what made you think, oh, well, it's no big deal. Like how much different could it be? Like, do you think that had a big impact on it?
I actually never thought of it like that. Now that you say it, I think that might, just having experienced different cultures and just not being afraid of different cultures is kind of something to think about. I don't know, but I think what mostly I served in the army and I was in the army for 3 years. Combat service. It wasn't like the best of terms, and it was a very like difficult. Now when I look back, I can say it was difficult 3 years, and so honestly, because I couldn't find any friends that wanted to go with me, I wasn't going to stop myself from traveling, to India. It was first to India and then Nepal, but I wasn't going to stop myself from traveling just because nobody's going to go with me, right? Like, this is the time that I have. My job just gave me the few months to just go and travel. I had all my, vacation days and everything added up, and the rest of the time I didn't get, but for my vacation days, it was nice to get paid while you're traveling. It was really cool. Um, so I had that, and I wasn't gonna just let that go away.
Yeah, and what a great concept too that you just bring up there. Like, and I'm glad that you captured that, like, in that moment too, where you're like, why am I going to wait for, like, okay, I don't have that many friends that really want to take that travel. Why would I wait for them? Or to make a friend that's going to want to go with me, and I should just do it by myself. Like, I feel like so many more people would benefit if they had that mentality, because at least here in the US, I feel like a lot of people have that aspect of mind where they're like, oh, but I want to go with my friends. And like, oh, I see my friend travel and like, I want to go with them. And like, that's great. You can travel with your friends and there's nothing wrong with traveling with your friends. But if at the end of the day, your friend can't go, you shouldn't be letting that hold you back from doing what you actually want to do. And I think that that's a harder concept for people to get here in the US, or to just take that leap of faith to actually do it. It's not that I feel like there's a lot of people that want to do it, but they just haven't found like the courage to just do it. And that's like a very big step for them. So I do want to
Definitely, and that's like something that I try to kind of project.
Yeah, you project that in your message on Instagram, which, by the way, guys, if you guys haven't checked out her Instagram yet, you should. She is Keren versus the world. How appropriate. I love it. But I do want to ask, let's get into the crust of this conversation, where it is, how has COVID been over there? You, like we talked about earlier, you're in a whole different aspect of the world over there, but how has Israel really combated COVID, and what are the things that they're taking, I guess precautions, I should say, that they're taking to combat that, and just how it's been over there?
Okay, so it's been pretty rough right now. It's great, like in terms of just life, not necessarily in terms of, the people infected with COVID. So we had our first lockdown was in April, I believe, April for
Okay.
like a month and a half. And it was just a really, really difficult lockdown. The only one you could go, or the only places you could go to is like to get medical care if you need it, a grocery store, and just you could go 100 meters away from your house. Like that was just the distance you're allowed to leave your house. You couldn't
Wow.
go beyond that. And that was especially difficult because it was during the holiday season. It was during Passover, which is one of the high holidays in Israel, and people just never went to see their families, and just like mentally, that really gets to you when you're stuck at home for a month and a half and just there's no end in sight because they didn't tell us, they didn't give us like any sort of deadline of like when this would end.
Yeah.
And they weren't sure how to even like combat it. So they just kind of, I guess, took the time to figure things out while we were in lockdown. And so that was hard on people mentally, I think, mostly. The numbers pretty, in comparison to the rest of the world, they're pretty decent. I think we do have right now, last time I checked, if I remember correctly, a 99.4% survival rate, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
Every life lost is unfortunate in terms of like on the whole, we're doing pretty well.
Absolutely.
But right now we had a second lockdown for a month and a week, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Again, for the holidays, we have a lot of holidays, like Jewish holidays are just all year, pretty much. We have like quite a few high holidays, they call them. And so it was the New Year in September. And so everyone, again, we were allowed to leave 1 kilometer from our house. You could do sports if you wanted. And you could, like, if somebody was like in or a break or some sort of a breakdown, I think that's the word. You could go help them, but otherwise you couldn't leave your house. And so that was kind of, again, it was just like mentally very, very hard. But this time it was, for me personally, a lot easier too because I moved houses, like I moved to a new apartment, and in this new apartment I live like right on the beach, and so because it's less than a kilometer from my house, I could go to the beach all day and just like hang out there if I needed to, as opposed to my other house where I just didn't have it at all. But it was for other brand people that really struggled with the second lockdown as well, especially old people that just haven't seen their families at all throughout this entire time because they're afraid of getting COVID, and so they've just been isolating themselves completely. So that's
Absolutely.
for me, that's like the hardest part, like to hear these stories.
Yeah, so I think that, and Passover is such a huge thing over there. Of course, we have our population over here that celebrates it and such like that. And, we recognize the holiday here. But I feel like that would be equivalent to putting America in lockdown during Christmas, like that would be insane. Like, I don't even know how that would impact our like culture and how people, like not only just like with, I mean, here in Florida, we don't experience it because it never gets cold here, right? But when certain countries, and I don't know if Israel falls into one of these countries, but certain countries, like they get such intense winters and they can't go out as much. They end up getting that depression because they stay home and they don't get as much social interaction. So there's like an actual like winter depression that happens because of that. Not that, again, like we don't get that in Florida because it doesn't get too cold, but I feel like everyone experienced that in some type of way, but on a more extreme scale. And for that to happen during holidays, I mean, I know that a lot of festivities for like 4th of July were canceled for us, but even so, like I feel like if it was during like Thanksgiving or, Christmas, I think it would have been a whole nother story, which, is obviously the way that it impacted you guys over there. So it's crazy to think about. Like, wait, so you guys were in 2 different lockdowns. So the second lockdown is over now. Was that, you said that was September?
Yeah, it was partially, it's September to October, and so it's partially over. Still, like malls aren't open, restaurants aren't open, any of just like kind of evening activities aren't open. You're allowed to meet maximum of 20 people outside and a maximum of 10 people inside, like in someone's house. You have to social distance. You have to wear masks everywhere. You can't go inside anywhere without a mask, like talking grocery stores. Even when you're walking down the street, I don't really see the logic in that, but even if you're walking down the street outside, you have to have a mask on, even if you're like distanced from the world. Just have a mask on. Like, let's say a cop saw you without a mask, even if you're just by yourself, you'd get like a fine.
Wow.
We weren't up until like the beginning or the end of October, I believe. We weren't allowed to go unless you lived by the beach or if you like ran to the beach. You couldn't go to the beach at all. So I got lucky. I could go to the beach, but we weren't allowed to visit any nature sites or anything. Even though it's like you can just like be on your own, we weren't allowed at all. So that was really hard, in terms of traveling, because you couldn't travel anywhere in Israel. Couldn't, they'd have like cops on the roads and the highways, everything. So
wow. So they were really enforcing it.
Pretty rough, but yeah.
So that's yeah, and I feel like that's a huge difference than what it was over here. I mean, yeah, people were enforcing depending on where you were. I feel like it really depended on, the store that you're going into, or, like if someone caught you without wearing a mask, like nobody was going to like reprimand you. So it's kind of crazy to see that cultural difference. But I mean, here it's like obviously masks are a very big thing and people are, wearing them, and a lot of stores are forcing people to wear them. But pretty much, I mean, Florida has considered themselves into a phase 3, which is like pretty much open. But it's, even since that's the case of like everything being open, we still have like different stores are like they're personally requiring people to wear masks. So it's like if they didn't want to require people to have masks, they wouldn't have to, type of thing. So it's like it's an interesting dynamic. But it's interesting to hear that you guys are still like in that like very strict lockdown over there with COVID, and just how that's being affected. I think that one of the biggest things that a lot of Americans have gotten from this whole COVID thing is that a lot of them are starting to appreciate nature a little bit more and travel like within their state and such like that, and going, camping, and the RV sales I know have gone up a lot in the US because of COVID. People are like trying to explore more, but I can't even imagine if they like said you can't even go outside, like you can't even go into like a forest where nobody is because of whatever. Like that would be, I have no idea what would happen.
Yeah. It's pretty. I mean, it's nice that people are appreciating nature, and it's nice that even nature is kind of enjoying the fact that we're stuck at home. Our parks have been clean, and animals are just been roaming around like freely, and you start seeing like foxes just crossing the roads every now and then. So that's been great for nature. I'm kind of, that's kind of something that's nice for me. Like,
Yeah,
you're making what's called lemonade out of lemons, or,
yeah, you can make lemons or make lemonade.
Phrases.
Yeah, you can look at the positive side or the negative side of things. And, I didn't think about that.
Exactly.
I know that nature definitely got, I know that nature definitely got a break when everybody here in the U.S. Wasn't allowed to go out. Like, I think that nature was just healing from everything, because I mean, we do, take advantage of nature in a lot of ways. I mean, even when we're hiking and stuff, if you got to be mindful. But it's really that's an interesting observation, is that you guys have been pretty much under the strict lockdown since April, with a very small piece that wasn't as strict, and then now you're seeing animals come out into the street more, and like oh, what's going on, because they're not as threatened. So that's very interesting. We actually have a question from Alana, and she is asking, have you noticed your loved ones and friends staying connected with technology rather than simply accepting the isolation? That's a good question.
So I think definitely a lot. It's kind of funny. There's like a bunch of like memes and jokes going around about old people like learning how to use Zoom, and then I think Zoom even like released a whole manual for old people on how to use their platform or their app. So it's been pretty cool to see people like just people who haven't used technology that much start using it. Yeah, to keep in touch with their loved one. It's been whole independent projects that going on to try and supply the elderly computers, with laptops. A lot of them even have laptops beforehand. They didn't even have phones or smartphones or anything like that. And so that's been really nice to see. On the other hand, school closed down for a while too. Yeah, completely locked. These kids are bad for them because they don't, so
That's
they're
that's
trying
awesome.
to use Zoom and technology to learn and study, but it's not working quite as well as it should be. But they're trying, and so technology has definitely had a huge part here.
Yeah.
It's been, I think, a lot of people for sure. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I think it does. And if it makes you feel better, technology and utilizing the whole Zoom aspect with our schools hasn't been like the smoothest process either. I know there's a lot of parents that might be watching, and I know that it was a rocky start specifically, but I think that it's all going to be very impactful in the future, and like getting everybody used to that aspect of technology. And it's a powerful tool, and I think that's really cool that you're there are a lot of initiatives over there that are helping elderly, like teaching them how to use technology and like paying for them to actually get that technology. That's really cool. I haven't heard of anything. There could be something and I'm just missing it, but I haven't heard of anybody like locally or in the US that is doing specifically that, where they're trying to get elderly like communication so that they're not so lonely. I know that there was like a few different, I remember during like the lockdown and everything, they kind of did like, there was like this viral post, and someone posted like a board with like an elderly person in a nursing home, because we have a lot of nursing homes here and a lot of elderly that are away from their families, and the nursing homes were getting hit the hardest with COVID, because it's like if one person gets it and they all like hang out with each other, then they all get it. And like these nursing homes were just like being completely invested with COVID. So it was really sad. But they like one I saw one go viral, and it was like a woman with a board, and it was like, oh, send me a pen pal or a message or something like that, and like you can send me a message to this nursing home. And she got like a flood of messages and such like that, just from like that post going viral. And then I saw some other people doing that, so that's like kind of one of the things that I saw, trying to connect people, like them with people, or sharing their story through social media. I think it's been really special to see how social media has like taken a part in connecting people even further. Because I mean, look, I wouldn't have started this whole platform of the Traveling Lucy and everything that I'm doing if it weren't for COVID, honestly. Like, I had my Traveling Lucy page before, and it was great, and I was trying to inspire people, but on a very way less scale. And then now I'm like, I got a YouTube channel, I got Travel Tip Tuesday, I'm connecting with people in Israel, like, it was just like all over. And really cool that I get to, have this aspect and connect with people and get the view of other people in other countries. Yeah. So it's hard to, we had a comment.
I love these like little initiatives to make other people feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's awesome. And Benet said on here, it's hard for older people to learn the new technology, and I'm one of them, lol. Well, Benet does an amazing job. Let me just say, I know Benet. She's in some of my
awesome.
networking groups, and she's doing a good old time with it. So I think that the adapting to it and everything, but it's a great way to connect with people. I think a lot of people are sick of it, unfortunately, because it is different than the in-person feeling that you get. I think that the aspect of what was losing the words, where it is hand gestures, you know, what's that word? What's that word? Body language. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm like, I couldn't think of it. Body
It happens
language.
to me all the time. Body language. Nice.
Yes. So body language, when you only see me from here up, you can't really read my hands, which are always going like this. So you can't really get like the whole aspect of the of what someone's trying to express to you.
True.
And I think that that's a big aspect
It's
of
true.
what people are missing from it. We might have to just get full body cameras instead of like half cameras here.
That's a startup. Dude, that's a
Yeah,
startup.
there
You
you
should
go.
start it.
Full body. Yeah, no, I've got enough startups.
You know, talk to Zoom.
Oh, you know, Alana said maybe by the time we all reconnect, we will appreciate each other's energy more. I like that. That would be great. That's awesome.
I love that,
So,
Alana. I really do. That's so true. Just to like feel somebody.
Sorry, there's a little bit of lag. Go ahead. You were saying.
Wait, I think you're cut off. Yeah, there's a lag. I'm sorry about that. It's Israel's internet's not as great as it is in the States.
That's okay. So how do you think travel will change over there with COVID? Like, do you think that, I'm assuming if everybody's locked down over there, they're obviously not letting people in, right? So how do you think in the future, how is it going to affect travel and people coming there and your tourism over there? Because I'm sure tourism's a big thing over there.
Yeah, tourism is huge over here, especially because of all the religious sites that there are here, whether it's, you know, Christianity, Islam, or Judaism. Everyone has something here that they visit, some sort of a site or religious landmark of some sort. I think that because religion is pretty huge here, I think people are still going to come here once we open our gates, but not even sure when that's going to happen, to be honest. But, you know, our economy has been really, really badly affected to the point where, you know, people are starving. And you know, the good thing about Israel, though, is that the moment somebody's like a post or something of like, I'm hungry, I don't have any food like in my fridge, somebody will literally take a box of food and go leave it by their doorstep and leave. That's the part about, you know, Israelis in general, that we're very like caring and we care about each other all the time. Like, you know, there was a huge initiative and they raised I think 25 million bills for these families that just, you know, had their electricity cut off or didn't have any food in the fridge or couldn't, you know, buy their kids a laptop for school, because, you know, a bunch of families just didn't have like enough laptops or didn't have like tablets or something. They couldn't study anymore, and so they spent all this money to buy them. And the nice thing about it was that every yeah, it's amazing. And the nice thing was that each of us, like each citizen over the age of 18, got 750 shekels. I don't know, divide that by, it's not a lot of money, but divide that by like, I think 3.5 maybe. I'm not sure what the more. But that 25 million was raised from people that actually donated their 750 shekels that they got from the government. Because the government, that's like the only like subsidy that we got. We don't get like any, you know, you had to close down your business, whatever. Very, you know, it's very difficult for people here for you know, people who are freelancers, very little government support. So it's amazing to see how people, even if they don't even have much to begin with, supported this initiative, and families that, you know, have food in their fridge got a whole, you know, got their fridge filled with food and clothes for their kids and whatever they needed. So that was pretty amazing.
That's incredible.
So I think, again, going back to like the economy and how badly it's been affected, I think that will bring in tourism. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's incredible. So two and someone commented they did the math about around $200. So 25, whatever the amount was that you came up with was all from the people who were donating that $200 that they had, and they had that extra to be able to fund those people who didn't have anything. That's incredible. That's a really special thing to share, and really proves how close knit your country and your people are, that they want to make sure that everybody is taken care of. Do you know how many people like are in Israel? Like what's that population even look like? Because I mean, obviously it's not as much in the US because the US is huge, but I wonder what that compares to.
9.1.
9.1 million?
Yeah, 9.1 million. Approximately.
Wow.
9.1. Yeah, 9.18, I think. Yeah, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's incredible.
We're a pretty small country, but you know, well, yeah, it's pretty awesome. And you know, just like a fun fact about traveling in general in Israel, people, you know, when I traveled solo to India and Nepal, I met friends on the plane, and then we just continued traveling together. And then from then on, you meet other people in their like in a little town. You just start traveling together, and so you start off completely solo. And you know, there were times in my trip that I was completely by myself, you know, just traveling, enjoying myself, whatever. But because we're such a tight knit community, it's so easy to like be friends with people, especially when you're abroad. Everyone's always taking care of each other. Like if there's an Israeli that needs help, the other Israelis would like help them out. If you know a family's looking for their son, whatever, or just, I don't know.
That's
Sometimes
awesome.
you see a post on Facebook, I'm looking for my son, he hasn't contacted me in like 2 weeks, what's happening? Is there anybody like in Thailand right now that could just check up on him? And then they'd like find him, or
the Israelis are like, we
hey,
got
you know,
this.
your mom's looking for you, go on Facebook and like talk to her or something, you know.
That's awesome. No, I love that. No, and it really is true about the aspect of traveling. When you're traveling with other people, I've seen that just traveling alone, like being other travelers is meeting other travelers and having that connection, and like it's automatically you make friends. Like even if I do a solo trip, I've made so many friends on those solo trips, and like they've become friends that I've stayed in touch with, and it's so cool. And it sounds like you pretty much experienced that, but to almost another level, if because they were Israeli, like they felt even more connected with each other rather than apart. So I love that. That's incredible to share. And I'm curious, so I feel like there's a lot of places in the world that Americans like tend to want to go, and that would feel more like, there's always, France and Greece, and everybody wants to go to the big name places or whatever it might be. But if they were to go to Israel, what do you think would be the what would be your advice to them? What do you think that they should do, or what's like a must see, or a must thing that they should do? What kind of advice can you give them?
Okay, so Israel is a really, really small country, point where if you were to drive from north to south, you could finish driving through the entire country in 7 hours. So, in the States, it's like from one part of a state to the other part of a state, and you wouldn't even get to the next state, theoretically. So 7 hours is not that long, but there's tons to see in those 7 hours, and there's tons of little, you could go to the desert and go to the crazy beaches, and you could do a whole bunch of stuff. So for me, when I travel, I tend to ask people what they love to do first, as opposed to just like, or what is their dream of trying to do, or trying out, or seeing, or just like, that's what whenever somebody asks me what they should do in Israel, first I ask them what they like. And so
Yeah.
If it were me, I love, adventures, and I love extreme sports. And so I think a must is to go to Eilat, which is in the southern part of Israel, and go snorkeling or scuba diving there, because it's in the Red Sea, because it's one of the most incredible underwater sites in the world. It's stunning, it's gorgeous there, and there's such good vibes. It kind of feels like Vegas, but more tropical, if that makes any sense.
A
There's like the
tropical
whole hotel
Vegas.
area, and then you have like the beaches on the other side. It's super fun. Yeah,
That's
yeah, it's pretty
cool.
awesome.
So that's a cool aspect. So you said that snorkeling is incredible there. So I'll have to put that on my list. But yeah, and someone Benet had commented saying there's so much history there,
Definitely.
and I think that there truly is. I mean, I remember, and I know that there's a plethora of history in Israel, but I remember when I went to Greece and I was just like, wow, this is just so old. There's so much history here. It blew my mind, like just being in Greece. I couldn't even imagine in Israel, like with everything that you guys have history wise there. So, what is the landscape over there? Because I can't say that I know per se what the specific landscape is over there. In general. So like is it very diverse? Is it one or the other, more desert, more, what is it?
Very diverse, incredibly diverse. You probably in the northern part of Israel, it's lots of mountains. You see gorgeous sunsets on the mountains, lots of hikes that you could do. And then the southern part, it's very desert. And you have a bunch of hikes that you could go on. And there's like a place called the Red Canyon, which is actually nearby Eilat, which is really cool. And it kind of looks like the Antelope Canyon. I think I have a couple pictures on it on my Instagram. It's like the similarities are crazy, like color. And I could only say that after visiting both, because a couple years ago I visited the Antelope Canyon, and it was spectacular on its own, yeah. But just recently I went to Eilat and I was like, have I never appreciated this place before? Like it looks exactly like Antelope Canyon. Like this, it's like mad how like similar these places are, and it's beautiful. And then you got like your party city, which is Tel Aviv, and everybody loves like Tel Aviv for historical landmarks and things like that. You go to the Jerusalem area, the Sea of Galilee. I think that for Christianity, the Sea of Galilee and around what's that place called? Gania, I think, where there's like something. I think Jesus may have walked on water in the Sea of Galilee. Is that true?
Oh, I think so.
I'm not sure if that's like, I don't know enough about the Bible to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely there's some pretty crazy,
pretty crazy things that you can check out.
Religious landmarks too. So it's very diverse.
Wow.
Yeah, and Israel is so tiny, but it's so diverse. So you got, like north, south. It's crazy.
That's awesome. Would you say that it's pretty expensive there or affordable? Like how is it cost wise over there to be anywhere? Or is there like, obviously I'm guessing in those party cities it's a lot more expensive, like Vegas here in the US, but how would you compare those?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Israel is very I wouldn't, for example, people they stay in or they want to stay around Tel Aviv, which is like the center city. It's like the biggest city for parties, and it's like the middle of everything. Everybody wants to stay there all the time. But in my opinion, you're better off staying just a little bit outside of Tel Aviv because Israel is so small. You're better off staying around like Ramat Gan or taking an Airbnb like somewhere around there. And it's funny like to call them like different cities because they're literally like a kilometer away from each other, but they're just like different cities. It's kind of, so you're better off staying outside the big cities like Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or Haifa, and if you go to like little cities beside them, which could be like a 15-minute drive or 20-minute drive, you're gonna pay way less. So that's my type of like staying here. Definitely better to stay outside of Tel Aviv if you're looking to save. Because it's super expensive. Like hotels here are mad. Yeah. It's not worth it. A lot of people don't even take vacations here in Israel, and they prefer like flying over to Greece. It's way cheaper to stay a week long in Greece than it would be like 3 days in a hotel here.
Wow, that's crazy. So when it comes to transportation, is transportation easy over in Israel, or is that, because I've pretty much only been to Europe. I've been to a majority of the states in Europe, or states, I've been to the majority of the countries in Europe, but it's transportation over there is very easy. Is it easy over there with the trains or buses, or is it kind of complicated? Is it in a different language? Because I feel like that's the biggest aspect for a lot of people is they feel like, especially when I talk about going to Europe, people are like, oh, you know, a different language, but everybody over there pretty much speaks English. So how is that aspect in Israel?
So in general, in Israel, most people speak English. You'll typically find somebody who can help you out. No, and everyone's very, very kind and like looking to help others. So it's nice. In terms of transportation, I wouldn't take cabs because cab drivers have a tendency to like take advantage of for some reason. I get it. It's really, really frustrating. I would in Tel Aviv and around the center, it's good to the public transportation is decent, but not the best. I would say that if you can, it's best to take a car or like find Israeli friends to like show you around and just take you. And you know, everybody, they're not even going to charge you for like
Karen
day of fun or whatever. So you're welcome to come down. Oh man, if it was, I would show you my apartment, like what I have outside of my apartment. It's crazy. And again, like I live outside of Tel Aviv and all those like center cities. It's more like in the northern part of Israel, and everyone thinks like I'm super rich or whatever, but no, because it's outside of the center, it's like it's pretty than I paid in my other apartment, which is in the center, and I live right on the beach.
So. Yeah, you said you live right on the beach. So like there's like this huge city and you're living right on the beach. I mean, it sounds like a great place to go. Like, let's go. But Alana says, friends, yeah.
There's another room here.
And Renee says, I'm packing. I love it. Well, I guess we're all going to visit Keren over
check out my Instagram. I have like photos there of my apartment.
Yeah, no, and you guys should go check out Keren vs. World on Instagram. Check her out because her page is awesome. She's obviously, as you can tell, very friendly and awesome. So I really appreciate all of the tips going to Israel. I can't say that I ever had a reason to go to Israel before. Not that I have a reason to go anywhere, but I always wait for something to kind of catch my eye, and now I've got a reason to go. So I'm very excited. When
oh, you definitely do.
I wonder how things. Do you have any aspect? Have they talked at all about like when they think they're going to reopen up? Because I know here in the U.S., like we just got back our sailing. Now they've released the clear to sail, so now cruise ships are going to be able to open back up and such. And I know that we're kind of on a fast pace aspect, but like how do you see, and I know you guys are still kind of shut down, but do you think anytime soon that they're going to be opening back up Israel?
Sorry, I like, how you have like something stuck in your throat. That's what's happening to me right now.
No problem.
Sorry, 1 second.
Unacceptable. Not allowed to drink water. How rude. No, I'm just kidding. You're good.
I think better now. Oh man, terrible. And during COVID, when you cough, it sounds so bad. I promise I don't have it. I don't have it. I promise.
Well, thankfully I can't get it from here, so you're good.
But they haven't talked about Wait, where's my mask? Hold on, I'll just get my mask.
There you go. Protect me.
But no, they haven't really talked about when they're opening up. I love the lag, how it just like the jokes like wait until.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
They haven't talked about when they're opening up the borders yet, unfortunately. But whoever has can come whenever they want. So if you have a citizenship, you can come.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll get right on that citizenship real quick. All right. So I think we've covered a good amount of stuff. Thank you so much, Keren, for sharing your wealth of knowledge of being in Israel. It's really cool to connect with someone that's actually there. So it's awesome just to be able to connect. And again, guys, I met her on Instagram, so it's really cool. Like just the aspect of technology, how, you know, I would have never met Karen before and like make a friend without Instagram. So who would have thought? But thank you so much for coming on. Please tell people how they can
So
contact
true.
and find you. I know that I've told them to check out your Instagram, but is there any way, any other way that they can reach you?
I have a Facebook page as well. Most Instagram is like my main platform. So if you're looking to contact me, definitely DM me. If you want, you can also email me at karenvsworld@gmail.com. That's my email. Feel free to send any questions about Israel that you may have, anything you didn't ask over here, or if I didn't or answer properly one of your questions, feel free to shoot out a message and I'll be happy to contact you
Awesome.
and talk to you more and just like get you and have fun. And again, welcome here to Israel. Everyone's so kind and like great people here. So we'll have you once the borders open, of course.
I love it. Well, it's definitely going to be on my list now. And I do have one last question that I ask everyone who comes onto my show right at the end, because I feel like it's just my closing remark question. So I would like to know, how has travel changed and impacted you as a person in your life?
I think traveling just me a better person in general, and I think that's like a very obvious question. I'm sure every single person that's you've ever talked to probably said the same thing, some like different one way or another. But before, I used to be very closed-minded and very kind of in my mind, every single country was the exact same as my own country, just like a different language, or something in terms of my like closed, kind of closed-mindedness about different countries and people in general. I think that traveling in general has just really helped me. And it's strange to say because I lived in Canada, and Canada's very multicultural. But when you travel and you really kind of feel the cultures, and when you're there, it's completely different than it would be as, you could mix the different cultures within your country. But when you're physically there, it opens up your mind, it makes you a more compassionate person. It makes you just realize that people are different and it's good to be different and it's good that we're all different. And I think that it's just a way to make the world a better place is when we're exposed to these different people and different cultures, and nothing to, be afraid of, and realize that people are always going to be people. And so that's what traveling kind of taught me. And there's so much more I can go into this a lot more, but
oh my God. No, you answered it perfect.
Sure has just made me a better person through that.
Yeah, no, you answered it perfectly. I think that it's crazy. Like you said, a lot of people who come on that I ask that question to, they all answer very similarly, but everybody says it in their own aspect, and you can feel it in a different way from each person because it's affected someone in some different type of way, or what they've realized from it affecting them. So what you just said right there really touched my soul, because it is one of those things that you really have to experience. It's not something that you can learn in a book. Like, we learn history in books, and I was never big into history when I was younger, but when I started to travel, I loved history. I loved learning about these places because I was like actually feeling it in there. And yeah, no, I love it. So that's a great answer. Thank you for sharing it with us. And I think that you're right. We see how different the whole world is, and but we also see how similar we all are. And it's a great way to just learn about the countries and the world that we're living in, and how relative we are to it all. So it's awesome. Well, thank you again, Keren. Really appreciate you coming on. And I do want to.
Thank you so much for having me. I had the best time.
Well, thank you. And I'm glad you had a good time. Yes. So, for those of you who are watching, I do go live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the YouTube and my YouTube channel, which is The Traveling Lucy. Make sure you guys subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And I also go live onto my Facebook page. And make sure you guys go and follow me on Instagram at The Traveling Lucy too. I've got so much awesome information coming up and some new exciting ventures that I'm working on too. So I'm excited to share that with you guys. And I'm happy that for the people who tune into this Travel Tip Tuesday every week. I know that you guys enjoy these guests, and I enjoy learning from these guests too. And I appreciate people like Keren who come on and share their story and share their experiences from all over the world. It's a really true, awesome, and unique way to connect us all in a virtual sense until we can make it to Israel. So thank you again, Keren, and thank you to those of you who are watching. I hope you guys will join me again next week and find out who my guests will be next week. Thank you so much. Have an awesome week and happy Tuesday. Bye.
Bye.